Good morning. The purpose of this video is to teach you how to use Tracker. So you can see I have Tracker already open on my screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is navigate to where I have saved a video. For me, it's in a window here. And I'm just going to drag that video and drop it in. And the video loads. The longer the video, the longer it takes. So you can see I have a track on a cart on a track here. There is a ruler alternating orange and white. Those orange and white segments are 10 centimeters long each. So I can zoom in on the video. I'm just using the mouse wheel to do that. And if I drag and hold, I can maneuver it around. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in on one of these orange and white sections, because what I want to do is establish my known length. And to do that, I come up to this button here, click on it, click new, and I like to use the calibration stick. And then it tells you what to do with it. End one, shift click to mark. So if you hold down shift, you get this little thing and you click and it makes a blue square. And then you go to the other end and you do the same thing. If you grab this, you can move it around if you didn't get it exactly where you wanted. And then you can come into here and tell it how long it is. So this is 10 centimeters, that's 0.1 meters. Okay. So zooming back out, the next thing I want to do is I need to set up a coordinate system. So I come up and I pick the pink axes, and if I grab, I can move it. And if I grab this mark, I can rotate it, right? And what I want to do is, for the moment, take and make this coordinate system line up with the track as well as I can. So you can see it's a little bit high, which means I need to bring the negative x-axis down a little bit, which should be a positive rotation. Let's see if that takes us the way we want. Yes, it did, but 0.3 wasn't enough. Okay, so why isn't it quite square? Oh, 2.2 was a little bit much. And it really is just a trial and error until you get to the correct value. The reason it isn't quite square is because the camera wasn't quite square. 0.9 looks pretty good. Let's zoom back out and see how that looks. 0.9 actually looks really good. So there we go. Okay, so now I've established my known length. I've established my coordinate system. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here under create, and I'm going to create myself a point mass. And just as before, notice there's a yellow box down here that tells me what to do. Mass A is selected. Okay, I didn't have much choice in that. Set mass on toolbar, shift click to mark. Okay. I tell you, I believe in the lab, to shift click. If you shift click, what it does is it says, hey, there's my point mass. And then it made a graph over here wherever I just clicked. And it also started adding a table. And I can continue shift clicking and trying to hit the same spot every single time. Notice the little red squares that appear disappear as I do this. That's because what they're doing is they're marking a trail. They're showing you where you've been. But you can also see that, you know, I'm trying to always hit that blue spot or light blue spot on the cart every single time. But you can tell I'm not quite hitting it perfectly. Things are moving up and down a little bit. If I zoom in again, pan over, see how they're going down a little bit? So there's an easier way. And the easier way to do that, the first thing you want to do is go up to track, go to Max A. I'm going to just clear everything I just did. And now instead of shift click, I'm going to hit control shift click, which gives me this. And I'm going to aim for that same spot. And what this is going to do is it's going to mark the position again. So if I look, I have a position, but it also opened this thing called an auto tracker. Features of the auto tracker. You've got a search bar, a search this, search next. You've got a template and a match, and right now they are 100% the same, because you've only looked at one frame. You've got 11, an evolution rate, which is how much can things change from frame to frame and still keep looking at the same thing you're wanting. You've also got this auto mark. So this sets a threshold, and if the score it gives the match is above the auto mark level, then it automatically marks it and move on. Okay, you can search on the x-axis only. You can look ahead. I've only ever used look ahead. You can change what mass or item that you are targeting for this. You can tell it what to mark. I've only ever used position. Down at the bottom, help, delete, close. You also have show keyframe. That first one that we made was the keyframe. Okay, and so you can go back and look at it. Okay. The other thing to notice is on the actual tracker window, you have a square now. That square determines essentially where is it going to look in the next frame for that same feature. And there's a little circle, and the little circle has a box, so does the squared, so you can resize and change and adjust what you want it to look for. Okay, I'm going to leave that about there. This video would have worked fine without adjusting it at all. Okay, so the magic of the auto tracker, and I think in the lab, I tell you to just keep hitting the search next. If I hit search next, it just goes and looks at the next thing, right? So we can click a bunch of these, and as you go, see how the red squares start moving, and if we zoom in, see how these are much more even than what they were when I was trying to do it? Okay, so some of your red squares left. You can come up here where it says set trail length, and you've got no trails. If you click no trails, all the red go away. If you click short trails, you get a little one. You were just on long trails, or you can get it to show all. Okay, so there you go. I'll leave it on show all. It doesn't much matter. You can turn off the numbers, turn on the numbers. I've never used these particular buttons. Sometime I'll have to explain, or not explain, explore what those do. The other thing that is used a lot, and I should mention it, is this at the bottom where you have a button that'll take you back to frame 0. You have a button play that will move you all the way through the video without marking anything, and then you have step forward and step back buttons. You can also loop it. Okay, so we showed the auto tracker with the search next feature. Now what happens when I just click search? And now notice how the match is evolving a little bit. It's moving around a little bit as it looks for this feature, right? And down below you can see there's match scores that pop up. Okay. If that match score goes below your auto mark of 4, then it will stop searching and stop marking in order to get you to say, yes, that's good, or no, it's not. And you need to watch this process as it happens to make sure that things stay marked roughly as you wanted them to. Okay, don't just, start the auto search and walk away to get a cup of coffee. It's not going to work so well. Okay, once you're to the end of your video, or to the end of the range you want in your video, you can close the auto tracker because you're done with it. And now we're going to come over and look at the plot. Okay, so a couple of features. First, I'm going to make it big because I can. I'm going to close track control. You can reopen it up above. Right, you can reopen everything up above. So this button over here allows me to change how I'm looking at things. Do I want to look at a plot, which I am? Do I want to look at a table? Okay. World view is my video. I can make that big in this window. Or I can do page view, which doesn't do anything because I have not set up anything for this. So I'm going to go back to plot view. I can then click on plot and have it show me 3. If you had more than one mass, you could click on this and switch from mass to mass. And you can hit the sync button, which causes the horizontal axis to be synced if you play around with things. Okay, our motion was strictly in X. You can see there's a little bit of variation in Y. That is just the change in the auto tracker, but it's not anything in Y like we have in X for variation. So let's go look at not Y, and by clicking on this, I can change this over to VX. And similarly, the bottom one, I can switch over to AX. So now I'm looking at the position, the velocity, and the acceleration in the X directions only. And you can see the position looks like a fairly nice straight line, and the velocity is fairly linear and decreasing just a little bit, but it does have some wiggles. So what are those wiggles from? Well, there are some wiggles up here, and the way the velocity is found is by essentially taking 2 of these points, subtracting them, and then dividing by the time interval, which is determined by the frame rate for the video. And any small deviation of the position graph can result in a large deviation in the velocity graph. And the same thing happens to get the acceleration. I take 2 neighboring velocities and divide by the frame rate to get the acceleration. Again, it's a little bit more than that, but that's essentially the gist of it. So small fluctuations here result in bigger fluctuations there. Okay? But for all intents and purposes, we have more or less a linear position versus time graph. We have a velocity versus time graph, which is decreasing. I will admit it is going down a little bit. Friction is causing the cart to slow, but and so not flat, but not a whole lot is what I'm trying to say. And we have an acceleration graph, which is going a little bit above and a little bit below 0. But I bet if you took an average of this, you would get a very small number because those would fluctuate out. It's not going to be 0 because we know it is slowing down, so it is accelerating, but it is going to be small. Okay. Those are the plots. I'm now just, I could go back into here and make this big and look at it. The other thing I could have done is just change that one over to table. So let's make the table big. Right now I only have T, X, and Y. T, X, and Y are not the important bits of this video. So I can come up to table and choose, and there's a whole lot of possible things I can choose here. I'm going to turn off Y and turn on VX and AX. So now you can see we have the 4 columns, T, X, VX, and AX that we were looking at on the plots. From here, I've not pulled a whole lot of information from this particular view. However, if you do not change it to show the information you want, when you go up to export your data file, it only exports the columns you have showing in your table. So go to export data file. Common mistake that I often make is instead of doing selected cells, you need to do all cells. You also need to change the delimiter from tab to comma so that Excel will recognize it as a comma separated value file. Number format, full precision is fine. We only have 1 mass here, but if you had multiple, you could change it. Click Save As, choose a spot to put it. This was supposed to be a constant velocity graph. Obviously, it didn't quite work, but I tried. If you save it under a name that makes sense to you, And don't put a file extension. Excel will not recognize it, so you need to put the .csv at the end in order for it to work. All files is fine. Click Save, and then that landed, not here, not there, but in here, and you can see I have a constant velocity Microsoft Excel oh, wrong column, sorry, comma separated value thing. When you open this in Excel, which I can do, you can see you have your 4 columns, TX, VX, and AX. And you're going to want to first thing do a save as and save it as an Excel file, not a comma separated value file. Okay, so returning to Tracker. The other thing that you will be doing, though not this particular Motion 1 lab, you'll do it in Motion 2, is you're going to come up to the Data tool. And if you do that, it turns on another window. First thing, come over here and remove everything but 1 so that you actually get what you want to see. And you can see this is just the same position. Nope, this is acceleration versus time graph that you just had. You can come up to measure and measure things about it. More important for Motion 2 is you're going to come up to analyze, and you're going to look at 2 things. The first you're going to look at is the statistics, which opens up information over here on the maximum value, the minimum value, the mean, which is the average. Don't forget mean is another word for average, the standard deviation, standard error, and the number of points possible, n. Right? So let's look at the mean of our acceleration, and it is 4.785 times 10 to the minus 2 meters per second squared. So is it 0? Well, you're not going to really get a 0 in Tracker because of the way it calculates acceleration and what it does. What you will do is get a number that is small, and I don't know a physicist who would not argue that that is a small acceleration. Right? If we go and look at something a little bit better, you can change what you're looking at axis-wise in 2 ways. One, you can click on this and change it. The other thing you can do is you can grab and move around over here. When you change in a new video, turn off the old one. Sorry. And then go to Curve Fits. And this allows you to do a fit of the curve. You can see it added a pink line. It's a little hard to see there, but it is there. Not the greatest fit. This one is actually better as a parabola. If you don't have it on, you're going to want to fit auto fit or click auto fit. Without it, it doesn't automatically adjust the values of A, B, and C to match the curve. Okay. It does give you an RMS deviation and a correlation coefficient. Ideally, this correlation coefficient would tell you how well your fit matches your data. The problem is that I can change to things like a cubic, or I can go back to linear where we could see it didn't fit as well, and the correlation coefficient doesn't change. So I don't know how exactly or what exactly Tracker is doing with that number, but it doesn't seem to work quite correctly. What else can I show you down here? I've never used the Fit Builder, but that would allow you to define functions and things like that. In a future lab, you may use the Data Builder, which allows you to add a column. You can multiply, you can divide, you can add and subtract and shift things around a little bit. That, I think, pretty much takes you through the basics of Tracker as you will use it in Motion 1 and Motion 2. I hope it helps. Don't hesitate to email me with questions if you have them.